I Have Got an Agenda. Yes, that's our title for this week. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best play for predictions and opinion. And we are going to be talking about rugby, and more rugby. So, joining me is Ashwin. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, yeah, no, swings and roundabouts. It's the circle of life, all that sort of stuff. Yay!
But no slides, you see? You need a better playground.
Yeah, no slides. I do need a better playground.
So this last weekend, okay, so I watched Highlanders Sharks live, Brumbies Rebels live, Crusaders Chiefs live, Waratahs Blues live, Ireland Wales live, Scotland England live, Jaguares Hurricanes live, France Italy live, the full match of Storms versus Bulls on record, and I watched highlights of Lions Reds. Which games did you see this weekend, Ashwin? And for our podcast listeners, that really works.
That's zero.
Zero, yes.
For our podcast listeners, that was zero. I went to my friend's place and took my children up, and we experienced the outdoors. So that was a whole weekend of not watching any rugby. I got back and I saw a recorded episode of the Blues. And
episode of the Blues? You make it sound like Friends. So,
I'll be there for you.
You saw the whole game, or you saw highlights?
No, I saw the whole game on that one.
Whole game, okay. Oh, you have seen some rugby.
I actually went and recorded a couple of the others, but I just haven't had a chance to watch them.
Oh, dear me. So, Joshua, you were asking us about Israel Folau's new contract. Thankfully, that's rugby league, so I can say I'm not talking about it. Yes, I don't want to talk about him, and I'm not going to, put bluntly. So yes, that's rugby league, Joshua. It's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, and so I'm afraid I'm not.
It's a rabbit hole we don't have to go down because it's not our sport. Yes.
Exactly. As much as our Switch jersey looks like perhaps some sort of rugby league thing, but actually no, it's an 80s throwback or 90s throwback to Super Rugby.
96, 97, something like
that. So yeah, let's get into it. First up, the World Rugby Rankings, which have been one of those things that we look at on a regular basis. And the reason for doing this is because after the November internationals, they will be doing the seedings or the draw for the Rugby World Cup 2023, which means if you're not in the top 4, you're in trouble. If you're not in the top 8, you're in real trouble. And so those rankings do matter. First, currently we have South Africa as number 1 and New Zealand as number 2. That hasn't changed. England number 3, maintain a number 3 place. But importantly, Ireland have jumped over Wales. So Ireland are now 4th and Wales are now 5th. That means the difference between being a first seed and a second seed. The rest of the top 10 are the same with France, Australia, Japan, Scotland, and Argentina. So that's how that will makes up. The big movers this weekend was Portugal. They are up 2 places from 22nd to 20th. That's the second week on the trot. They've been the biggest mover. They were biggest climber last week as well. So congratulations to them, especially for their win over Romania. Massive result for them in the last weekend. Russia are down from 20th down to 25th after their loss at the weekend in the European Challenge Cup, I think it's called, or whatever it's called.
Bit of a bear market.
Basically, a bit of a bear market. Oh dear me. Basically, it's the Six Nations B, or the Six Nation Div 2 is what it really is. What are your thoughts on my Aussie conference and 3 of our teams not even having a win? Yes, well, okay.
We'll come to that a bit later.
You want to cover that later?
Yeah. It's like we'll cover off the old rugby rankings.
But that's pretty much the rugby rankings. Anything else you want to say about the rugby rankings?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. Obviously, they're already asking for Wales' new coach's head. I still believe that that Wales will make up the top 4. I still think it'll be a South Africa, New Zealand, England, Wales top 4.
Now, the problem with that,
unless France go and throw some sort of cat amongst the pigeons, big talk around how the massive improvements, obviously, and just, as you've alluded to, under 20s players that have won the under 20s championships coming through and sort of thing. But Uh,
Go. The
Yeah, I was just going to say, I sort of think, Wales are the. Well, both Wales and Ireland new coaches, right?
yeah, the problem for Wales is is where they're going in July for the mid-year internationals.
Yeah.
And I think they are here in New Zealand, aren't they?
Are they?
Yes. So
No way. An All Blacks fan and he doesn't know who's coming here.
evening, Jordan, as well in the live chat. Hello, in the live chat. So yes, this so Wales's issue this year is the fact that yes, they are touring New Zealand. So they've got 2 tests in New Zealand. Scotland are the 3rd test here in New Zealand. So that's going to be a problem for them. Whereas Ireland, who is obviously one of the main competitors for that ranking place, go to Australia, which is a much easier prospect than Wales face. Admittedly, Wales are going to cram in a game against Japan as well, whereas England are touring Japan and getting 2 games in Japan. So hey, let's get those nice easy ranking points.
Well, I was going to say, one of the dark horses, and I think we talked about it last week, them being a dark horse. Japan, can they keep building on their sort of momentum that they're sort of getting? Big asks against England and Japan, but will England send a full strength team to Japan, or will they send a more of an experimental team?
I think that might depend on what the rankings look like at that point, because being in that top 4 is absolutely paramount.
Crucial. Who plays in what order? Wales versus Japan, England versus Japan.
So Wales play Japan first, basically out of window on the 27th of June. Obviously, Wales aren't expecting too many of their players to be in the Pro 14 final, so don't have to worry about that.
Awesome.
And then England play them for the first on the 4th of July and the 11th of July, that first and second weekend in July, which is when Wales will be playing New Zealand. So first up at Eden Park, where obviously the All Blacks lose so often, and then down in Sky Stadium in Wellington.
Righty. Yes.
as we affectionately call it. And then obviously Scotland gets played down in Forsyth Bar in Dunedin, because hey, that's where the Highlanders are from.
Well, that's where all the Scottish people are.
And maybe they'll give them a Claymore like the Highlanders gave the British Irish Lions when they played down there.
Well, since we're talking fixtures, especially in this part of the world, there is a real risk. There's a real competition, I think, for that unbeaten since 1992, I think it is, at Eden Park, because South Africa plays All Blacks at Eden Park.
Yeah, that's true, and that's been a big change, isn't it? That's the over the last ever since I've been here since I moved in 2014. The Wallabies have always got that Eden Park test, and that's always been seen as the big game, the Bledisloe Cup.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why. I mean, I think. How long have you been? When did you say you got here?
2014.
2014. Oh yeah, okay, yep. So Wallabies have definitely played here more recently, and I think that's been, as you say, what's the big game of the season, and we'll chuck that at Eden Park.
Yep. And hence now that South Africa are world champions, they have the we are the better team. Which I mean,
this is like getting a bit of the kudos, isn't it? It's just like, oh yes, you're the better team, so you get to play there now.
Yep. So Josh says that the All Blacks seem to be weakest in Wellington. Well, actually, look, it's who they play. They've not played the All Blacks, so they've not played the Springboks outside. I mean, they played them. They tend to play them in Wellington. The Springboks are better than the Wallabies, and hence the All Blacks are less likely to beat the Springboks and Wallabies. So it's down to the strength of the team they're playing more than the ground, and the All Blacks just not being very good in Wellington. Let's be honest. Thank you, Simon. International European Rugby Championship is the name of the Six Nations B, or Div 2. So yes, that's what that's there. The other massive thing, Scotland, really gluttons for punishment. They're off to South Africa for 2 games, and then they come to New Zealand for a game in July. Their ranking is going to absolutely suck come the end of the
tank. It's going to tank.
It's going to tank. Yes. So any chance they've got of climbing back above Japan is pretty remote. And this is the first time Scotland have played, or this is only the second time Scotland have played in have had a test against the All Blacks in New Zealand this century. It'll be the second one. 2000 was the last time they were here.
When was it? 2000?
2000.
2000. I was there. It was pouring down at Eden Park.
I mean, Josh says, they've lost, they drew, and they lost to the Lions, plus France had a red card. The Kiwis struggling in Wellington. Look, come on. The teams they've played in Wellington are, the Springboks and the British and Irish Lions. They're two of the best teams in the world. So, look, I think it's more than that.
Well, I mean, we know Joshua's form. Let's be honest. So he mentions the fact that France had a red card, but he doesn't mention the fact that when the Lions won, the All Blacks had a red card. So
anyway,
yeah.
Look, I think it's not down to the same. It's down to who they're playing. I don't give the Wallabies any. I don't think that they always talk about this Fortress Eden Park, but to be honest with you, the atmosphere there is not that great. There's no reason for Eden Park to be a particular fortress compared to anywhere else in New Zealand, to put bluntly.
No, not really.
So yes.
The only thing, and if anything, Wellington, out of all the stadiums in New Zealand, should be the stadium which is more of a home ground for the All Blacks, because the conditions can just be so random at Westpac. Even if it's a southerly blowing, the wind inside the stadium swirls around the stadium. So, our kickers are getting used to playing in the stadium, you'd think. Or, whether it's field out of the hand kicking or whether it's for poles, you'd sort of think that the All Blacks would be more used to kicking in that environment. So if any of the stadiums were going to benefit them, it would be Westpac.
Okay, folks. Archie says for poles, I say for sticks. What is it? What's the right? Let us know in the live chat. What do you say? Do you say poles, sticks, posts? What do you do?
I say sticks. I don't know where poles came from.
Some of the just because I've got them up and we're talking about it. Some of the ones that sort of jump out and are interesting. South Africa A will play Georgia in that in the July window. United States will play French Barbarians. So interesting to see some of the and Georgia will get to play South Africa as well. So interesting to see some of the sort of the tier 2 teams. Canada will also get a game against French Barbarians. Argentina get France, which will be interesting, and Italy also do play Canada, USA, and Argentina as well. So, really looking forward to Josh, that's one. Or shot at goal. That's another one as well. Yes, some interesting fixtures there in July, but that does feel like a long way off at the moment. Let's be honest. Moving away. Oh, let's not move away. Mickey Mouse moments of the weekend. Well, the weather in Europe, especially in Edinburgh. Oh, that was an absolute shocker. Give
us a weather report.
The weather report. Oh, look. There were a whole bunch of people who basically said, that it was the worst conditions they've seen rugby played in ever at Murrayfield. Now, look, with modern pitches, the pitch still looked green. It didn't turn into a mud bath, right? Okay, so at least the players did have footing and weren't sliding all over the place. But the wind, and it was wet. I know several cameramen at least one cameraman has come and said, that was the worst conditions he'd ever done any sport camera work in. And a lot of people talk about trying to defrost after the game. So it was shocking there. So unsurprisingly, not entertaining rugby. And I had John O'Connor over for the weekend, and tried to sit him down and make him watch some Six Nations rugby, and it was kind of like trying to persuade him, look, it's good rugby. And it's like, oh no, what a shocker! Really?
He's struggling to watch Six Nations rugby. His team's going to be in the Six Nations soon.
Oh yes, there is that, isn't there? Come on then, because
he better start now. He might as well get used to it. That's what he's going to have to watch.
You loved it, didn't you? as soon as you saw that, you were like, on our Facebook Messenger chat, you were like, not again. Seriously? Just go away. I've had enough.
Just go. Stop being the baby in the cot going, wah, wah. Just pick your bags and go. Get it done, I think the rugby world's sick of South Africa going on and on about how they're going to join the Six Nations. And it's just like, and the media keep buying into it as well. Look, if they want to go. I'm just sick of the uncertainty around it too, which it causes as well. It's just like, let's make the decision. I think it came out that they can't go on the date that was mentioned because there's actually contractual obligations with SANZAAR.
Yep.
So once that's done, bye everybody, bye, and go play your Six Nations. And yeah, let's see if the Six Nations actually want you. Having to travel down. How many hours is it from the sort of that Europe area down to South Africa?
Yeah, to be honest with you, look, the Six Nations has got is one of the top grossing. Like it's definitely got the highest average attendance of any tournament in the world, annual tournament at least. It makes an absolute shed load of cash, and part of that is that you get big corporate sales at the grounds because people can go to home and away games. And part of it is having those fans. By adding in somebody like South Africa who's so far away, you lose a lot of that, and hence, I can't see why the Six Nations would want South Africa involved, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, and they're going to go play in 30-degree heat in the middle of Jan, like Super Rugby is at the moment. Oh wait, hang on. But Scotland's going to give up their position. Italy's going to give up their position.
Well, the idea is at the moment,
7 nations.
At the moment, it's 7 nations because it's over 7 weeks and they have two fallow weekends. In theory, you could fit more in. Now, there's been some interesting rewriting of history by the RPA. So the RPA is the Rugby Players Association in England that represents all the at least Gallagher Premiership players. And they've gone and said, look, as soon as all the international captains, and something like 7 of them stood up and questioned player welfare around the Nations Cup competition, that's why it floundered and suddenly didn't happen. Like, no, that didn't happen because the Six Nations didn't want relegation. Nothing to do with all the captains coming out talking about player welfare. And he said, I can see a similar thing happening here. We player welfare would not, so yeah, we could not have South Africa in. So the players have already thrown their toys out, or at least the player representative has made a statement. As I say, a bit of revision of history in there, but the players aren't too keen on an extra on an extra game in that 7-week window, and you can understand why, put bluntly.
To be fair, history revisionists are in vogue at the moment. So it's happening all over the place. Come to New Zealand, see history rewritten.
Right. This is not a politics broadcast.
Yeah, I know. We better move on.
We'll move on from that one very quickly. But we are going to stick on the media because the media have been an absolute laughing stock this weekend. Apparently, Razzie has been approached by England to become part of their coaching setup, which, as soon as I read that, was like, this is clickbait. He may have been approached, but hey, that doesn't mean he at any point went even entertained the offer. So that was always a big no-no, and absolute rubbish.
You just get the feeling with someone like Rassie in particular. I mean, there's just no way that's going to happen. That's just, he's although he might have stepped down as the South Africa coach, he's definitely there in the background. He's the director, I believe.
Let's be honest. He was hired to be director of rugby, and only stepped in because they had to get rid of the last head coach. He didn't want to be head coach.
Yep.
He never wanted that role. He just filled it ad interim because they needed somebody. So yes.
I think the I'll address that in a moment. I think the fact that he's actually director of rugby has actually become even more is better for South Africa. I think it'll improve them even better by having someone like that above your coaching stock, for want of a term, is the way it should work. You want your great coach at the top that actually creates a farm of great coaches, as opposed to having one, and then once that one leaves, what do? You're back to scratching around.
Yeah, but also you've what he's also done, which they've never managed to achieve before, is to get the other Super Rugby franchises at least semi on board with what the international setup is trying to do. And we saw that at the weekend when the Sharks' defensive system and the setup looked exactly like the South African one. And you can go, okay, that's come down from on high. So yes, no, he enjoys that part of it. I'm sure he enjoys the head coaching as well. But that structural piece, he's doing very well. So go on, talk about money.
Oh no! Look, I mean, I don't disagree with Simon. What his comment there? What I'm saying is, fans in this part of the world are just getting sick of, South Africa's going to leave. South Africa's going to leave, and it's just like that's what we just. And it's an annual event, isn't it? South Africa's going to leave. It's not. Yeah, sure. At the moment, absolutely, in the SANZAAR agreement, their presence brings in the largest amount of money because of the television rights, etc. Absolutely, no doubt about that. It's just the fact that we're sick of every year, reporters open up that bottom drawer, pull out the story, South Africa's leaving to go Six Nations. That's what we're talking about. We're sick of it. It's just like, so look, at the end of the day, could be detrimental to rugby down here, Australia, New Zealand, but, we're sick of hearing it. Go if you're going to go. And then basically Australia and New Zealand have to see what they can do to make it work.
Now, talking about seeing what you can do to make it work, I have an interview coming out tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. On DrivingMaul.com, name up there, where I've had an interview with Mike Rogers, who is the CEO of Bay of Plenty Rugby. And I've been talking to him about the high performance setup he's got, and also talking to him about their involvement with China Lions in Global Rapid Rugby. So have a listen to that. But one of the things he did say was, look, the rugby is going through massive change now, and you either position yourself for that, or you are going to get swept along by it and impacted by it. And one of the comments he said made me put out. There'll be another video coming out on Thursday morning, which is part 4 of my times they are changing, because I think we are going through the biggest change in the structure of rugby since professionalisation. And so part 4 will come out on that series on Thursday. Due to one of the comments he made, I expand out on that. But those two coming out for supporters of Driving Maul. So head over to drivingmaul.com and become a supporter for as little as $1 a month. And even Arsenal's a supporter. Wow!
Thumbs up. And smiley face. We shouldn't also forget the fact that talk of Fiji joining Six Nations. So there's your 8, because if South Africa joins at 7, you've got a bye weekend happening. So then Fiji joins and makes it 8, but just even more unrealistic.
Yeah, it is. It was interesting that Fiji were talking with France, and it's nice to see France working with. Sorry, just seen a comment in the chat. Kick out South Africa and put Namibia in the rugby championship. Yeah, no. But it's interesting seeing that it was France leading those discussions with Fiji, which was good to see. And France, like you say, with the French Barbarians going over and playing the USA and Canada. The French Barbarians have been touring with them for South Africa and New Zealand over the past couple of years as well. It's good to see that France making these strides around putting in those midweek tour games and helping out these tier 2 nations as well. So yeah, a lot of some good stuff coming out of France as well. We don't give them, generally, because they don't speak English, and we don't see as much many news articles from them. We don't get the same. They don't get the same coverage. Josh has put it in a couple of times about having 4 teams from Oz, 5 from New Zealand, 1 from Japan, 1 from Argentina. No, if you go down that route, the Argentina team goes as well, and they would
pick up Fiji. And that's where you pick up Fiji, right?
And Argentina would have to hope that their Premier League Sudamerica, which is the new professional league in South America that kicks off this year, has advanced enough in the next 4 years. Because nothing's going to change in the next 4 years, folks. contracts for all that kind of stuff are already in place for the next 4 years. So nothing's going to happen this World Cup cycle. So I know everyone's getting a bee in their bonnet about it, but look, it's 4 years ago. Even though Mark Richardson came out on the CEO of New Zealand Rugby on a radio station saying, "Oh, we must fast track in." Robinson.
Mark Robinson.
He's sort of saying we must urgently get new teams into the Rugby Championship. And I'm like, urgently? Only a month ago, you were saying that nothing's happening for the next 4 years. So, yeah, this urgency. Wow. Clearly, guys. Yeah. If I was, hey, yeah, if I had that kind of level of urgency, I'd be divorced. Oh, I am. There we go. So yes, that's joke. About calling that urgent, because it's not happening anytime soon. So yes, continuing with the media, because hey, it's been fun and games. New Zealand papers have decided that hey, we must continue to try and bash the sport because hey, there's too many people watching it and we don't have enough and we've got too many readers. So let's just say negative stuff about the sport rather than and say how no one's turning up to the games because no All Blacks are playing. No one's turning up to the games because you have been bashing the sport for the past 5 years, and people have got and telling people it's not worth turning up to. Well, that's why no one's turning up, folks. It's not because All Blacks are being rested.
If I had a nail and a hammer, I'd be hitting the head of it. That's the thing, and the biggest culprit around is the New Zealand Herald. That's a shocker. All they do is basically bag rugby. You don't, although you do get it through the rest of the country, but basically you've got sort of cheerleaders in those areas. You look at your press. I mean, they wave pom-poms for the red and black team down there, and then you're sort of starting to get it into the Hamiltons and with the Waikato Times, the Dominion in Wellington. So you've got the regional papers that do pump up their local team and all sort of thing. But the Herald in New Zealand basically just bags the Blues, bags Auckland Rugby, bags the All Blacks. I mean, how do you bag the All Blacks? Well, you have a go at their coaches because of what they're doing. So it's continual negative press that just keeps coming out. So everybody thinks that rugby sucks. Don't go and watch it.
So yes, anyway, there's clearly they've got an agenda. If anyone is reading any press in Australia, you'd think that Australian rugby has made an absolute massive error by not taking Fox's original offer, which is a drop in cash, and going to market to see how much their TV rights are worth. Now, just remember, folks, that all those articles are being written by papers that are owned by the same people who own Fox. So there is a clear agenda in the Fox Group's set of media to bash Rugby Australia to get a cheap price or something, and then they'll wonder why no one's signing up to watch it because hey, you've bashed it. The Sydney Morning Herald and Green and Gold Rugby, to be fair to them, have stood up and said, "Look, this is a joke." But again, look, there's just too many agendas in rugby in the media at the moment.
So it's just as big, because obviously reading that, I read the Sydney Morning Herald article, and obviously it gives all the issues around it. For starters, Fox is dictating to Australian rugby what the terms will be. There's no negotiation about it. They see Australian rugby as a cash cow, even in the state that it's in, because they basically just see the people that follow rugby will pay anything to watch rugby. So they don't have to go and sell the product out to them. They've got a connect. There was another sport that got mentioned that's in the same boat, and so yeah, basically the fact is that Fox is dictating terms, and then basically they know that they've got they're trying to tell the public, not Australian rugby, but the public, that Australian rugby has nothing to sell. Well, it's just like if they have, and because the fact is that they've got these rugby nuts that will pay. It doesn't matter how poorly Australian rugby is doing; they're going to pay money to watch rugby, and so there will be people lining up to take place of Fox and then it'll come down to how good the negotiators are within Australian rugby.
Yeah, but this is all part of the negotiation plan by Fox to try and get it as cheap as possible at the end of the day. It's not actually it's not reporting and it's not real opinion. It's negotiation tactics, which is just disgusting.
So just to answer Josh's question in the chat room, it's like effectively Fox will lose the rights to the rugby.
Well, and they could still get the rights. They
could. What I was going to say is that it'll go
going to bid. Let's be honest.
It'll go to bid, and they'll just become one of the bidders.
Yeah.
And if they bid the right package, then they could get it back. Otherwise, it could go to someone like Optus, Telstra. I mean, all the you look at what's happening in the New Zealand market with Spark. You've got telcos now getting into that media sports broadcasting area.
Yeah, and Optus is the most likely one. Which would be interesting. And let's be honest, coverage in Australia needs shaking up. Phil Kearns needs firing at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Oh, look, the other one that in that article they said Channel 10 needs something to drag viewers in. So, and if they can know that they're going to get diehards that won't go away. There's always diehards in every sport. That doesn't matter how dire the circumstances. Look at me, with the Blues and Auckland Rugby, which you just stick with it. That's your sport. That's what you watch. Yeah, KO will lose.
Well, I say KO and Fox will bid, but we'll see. So they still might get it just because they're saying how useless it is. I say it's a negotiation thing to try and drive the price down. It's not actually a thing. And and Optus would look at the idea is that Optus would lease Channel 10 some games to give the free-to-air coverage, which would be good. Simon mentions in the chat quickly there that the USA has lined up with Southern Hemisphere calendar, so has Japan, and effectively you now have a European calendar and a rest of the world calendar. It's not North and Southern Hemisphere anymore. Let's just be honest about it. That's just the tags we use, but effectively it's Europe and non-Europe.
East and West. Sort of.
Well, no. It's not how, it's just old world, new world, or old world, rest of the world.
Well, the most frustrating element of this whole thing is that I actually really liked World Rugby's plan, global tier 1, tier 2, promotion relegation plan that they'd come up with, and it was basically Scotland that basically bowled it. That would have been a massive step forward for World Rugby. And disappointing.
It was disappointing. Going back to the old world again. Media people with agendas, and I got caught out by this one, and tweet out there saying, look, that there were cold showers for the Welsh women's rugby team after the Ireland Wales game in the away dressing room, and I was like, well, that's disgusting. They should have they shouldn't have cold, and if it was because of the storm and the boiler's broken, then they should go to the home dressing room and use hot showers in there. No, apparently both dressing rooms had cold showers.
I didn't know that. Actually.
This wasn't a thing targeting the away team. No, exactly. And so I said, hey, for all the rugby values, blah 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 rubbish we see. Look, this is not on having the away dressing room just having cold water. But yeah, both did because the boiler got damaged during the storm. Look, this happens.
My understanding was that there was hot water; it just ran out.
So that's how she made it sound, right? But that wasn't what happened. No. So
stadium ran out.
The whole stadium didn't have any. So she deliberately chose what details to use because she had an agenda about this, that basically women's rugby was being mistreated, which is just, look, the conditions and the weather over the weekend. People have died. There's people who had the houses flooded. It's been, but yet the authorities have still got the games on. So well done to them, to be honest. If there isn't been some hot water, well, look, it's wrong. There should be hot water, but these things do sometimes happen.
Absolutely. I don't think there's, globally, when you watch those games, there isn't the appreciation of how bad the conditions are, because coverage is so good. I mean, I watched that Blues Waratahs game, right? And apparently the conditions, particularly in the second half, were actually really bad. But you're watching it on TV, and it's just like, why are they dropping the ball?
Yeah, because they've got filters.
Does it look like it's raining?
They've got
Does it
filters
look
and
like it feels
stuff, which mean you don't see the rain. You can actually see the play. If they didn't put those filters on, you would just see a grey fuzz of raindrops. So I get why they do it, but it does, as you say, it means that you don't understand what's been going on. So yeah, so folks, be careful with what you read in the media, because I got caught out as well.
To tell you the truth, I think because people who watch the show, and obviously Paul and myself, involved in politics and the like as well, but it doesn't matter whether it's politics, sport, whatever. You read these days, anything you read, you take with a grain of salt. You take multiple sources of information, and that's how you formulate what you believe to be true. You don't take one story and think, oh yeah, that's the way of the world.
No, but you can see one tweet, the 240 characters or 280, whatever it is now, and you are making opinions off that.
Yep.
And that's my bashing of the media. If you want to support independent media, go to DrivingMaul.com and become a supporter.
True.
So let's talk about some Super Rugby then. You want to talk about refereeing?
Oh, mate.
I'll give you the whole screen and you can rant. And I'll sit down. Off you go.
Oh no! I mean, it's just there's not much to talk about, to be honest. It's just the inconsistency of what you see one week to the next week. It's within a game, and then obviously how directors in the trucks influence decision making as well, because you look at the Hoskins Sotutu yellow card, and it's just like that's a penalty. Because as an accident occurred, that's not a yellow card, and it's the only reason that was a yellow card is because of the fact that, the directors in the truck sort of put footage up that helps to make that decision. I know there's the TMO that also asks for etc., but the initial start points of a lot of those is because there's been footage put up on the screens in the stadium. And then you go to the inconsistency of the referees. We saw it in that first this week. Actually, the Blues' first try should have been ruled out because you had a player in front of the ball carrier that scores the try. He joins in front of the ball carrier, right? So that's actually, and there's a tackler there. As soon as there's a tackler in the vicinity, that's no try or that's a penalty. I saw footage this week where, again, a player's in front makes just the slightest of touches with their own player, and it's a penalty. Last week, it was a try. And it's just like, it's the inconsistency, and it's going on week after week. And something in rugby that we don't do, that the other oval ball code does in our part of the world, is that they review the referee's performance. They review decisions. And I know your view on it, Paul, but the reality is that we're not going to get consistency as long as we put our head in the sand and think that everything's hunky-dory.
No, look, the referees' performances do get reviewed. Okay, we just don't get to see that review.
Yep.
Which is slightly different about whether but they definitely get reviewed.
You don't have open. It's not open and transparent.
Correct.
They're not sort of saying, hey, no, you stuffed up. That was a poor call. And we're not finding it, and because they're not going to do that to their referees.
No. And when they have done, we've seen referees get hounded out the game because of it.
We have, but that comes down to, it's about management. I mean, again, you've got sports where they do go and come out publicly and say that was a wrong call, but then they manage the whole process to make sure that the referee isn't hounded out of the sport because they can't afford to have them hounded out of the sport.
Yep.
So it's all about the management. It doesn't mean leaving. I mean, we at the end of the day, being professional sports, you need to make sure that everything is an improvement. If you're in a corporate organisation, you don't tolerate the same mistake again and again and again.
Well, you do if you've got a bad problem management process. But anyway, yes, it's bad practice. There was the latching on and going in front of your player. Yeah, I remember that. I also remember players joining mauls and sliding past the ball carrier. I've seen both of those happen recently and not get called.
Yep.
Godguku says Ireland's third try was dodgy, and I can't remember that one. If that might have been the one where there's a ruck and a potentially double movement where he came down short and then reached over. That I thought was a bit dodge. But yes, so there are some there. The sizes, yeah, common in lower tier sides have cold showers. Maybe sure, but we're talking about international rugby here.
Hey, we don't know. Simon might have played for Ireland and got a cold shower.
True. So inconsistency is a problem, and yeah, we hope they get incrementally better, but we're not seeing it, are we? Let's be blunt. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Other Super Rugby. Chiefs of the Crusaders.
Oh, jeez. Pot kettle black or pot kettle colour. Jeez, I mean, I can't believe. I mean, let's remember this. This is the team that last year couldn't manage to buy a red card from a referee. Is that complaining about niggle in a game? They have a player called Joe Moody that sort of doesn't believe in using arms in a ruck at all. So, it's just, I just couldn't get over. I suppose a little bit of that was what we talked about previously. The media sort of blowing it up a bit because it was off just a couple of comments. But at the end of the day, it's just
listening to a couple of people. So Mike Pullman and also I've gone blank. The guy who wrote the book Brothers in Black.
Pass.
Anyway, Jamie something or other. They both said that basically the majority of the questions in the presser after the game was about niggle.
Was about niggle.
Sorry. Yeah, it was just they were just talking about niggle in the presser. There was no actual talk of play or game or players or action or game action. No, it was all about niggle, which is dearie me. So yeah, yep. I like God cookers. If the refs do bad, give them a cold shower and a telling off by Nigel Owens.
It's not a game of tiddlywinks, okay? Not that he did that, but just mashing up a really bad Welsh accent.
Yeah, I just skipped over that one. But yeah, you got come on, guys. Look, you're not helping yourself about. So I mean, we had a similar thing with between the Sharks and the Hurricanes in week one. Look, whilst the coaches and the players can't come out and just say positive things post game, but also look, guys, you need to also think about what the image of the game you are. You're putting across when you do that. Talk about missing All Blacks. It's a bit of a joke. We've talked about Six Nations and South Africa and Fiji joining.
Missing All Blacks?
Sorry?
We talk about missing All Blacks?
Well, basically the media were complaining about it.
Oh, right. Well, actually, I mean, but in saying that, I do think it's being detrimental to the game. It's massively detrimental to the game, the way that, we look at Rico Ioane, who unfortunately got injured, but I'll use him as an example anyway. He played very little All Blacks rugby last year, and yet is being put under, minute control, X amount of minutes per game. Because he's an All Black, and it's just like, well, he's a winger, and he hasn't actually played a lot of rugby. I use Rico as he's a very good example of that because he got dropped, and we had George Bridge and Sevu Reece coming ahead of him. So, and he's not getting the game time in the black jersey. And then the good one was, I think, was it Joe Moody that actually was sort of saying, hey, look, he played his first game of 50 minutes against the Chiefs, and he found it really hard because he hadn't played any rugby. And so it's actually, is that more dangerous when you're coming into a game, when your body's not used to the contact and the physical? You can do training till the cows come home, but there's nothing to replicate game time, is there? And the physicality in the game.
True, and I think you touched on a good point. The Rico Ioane one, look, is that at the moment it's a blanket ban, whereas in reality, what you want to do is have a player by player thing. Now, if you want to put rules around it, like any player that played 80% of the test match will get selected in the match day 23 for 80% of matches last year has to do it. then fine. You know, if you want to put rules around it, then so that it doesn't look discriminatory, that's fine. But it should be workload related. Sorry,
you can't discriminate these days.
That's why you've got the blanket thing in there. Is because is so players. I mean, like Brad Weber, who played two test matches, maybe last season. Yeah, he shouldn't be under minute control. Sure, he needed the 12-week break and to come back when the All Blacks come back, right? So he gets a proper break because he has been training during that whole time, right? So he should get the break, but he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't need to be.
Yeah, but Paul, when did the World Cup finish? For the All Blacks, even when did the World Cup finish?
Sure, but,
early November.
Okay. Yes, but normally, right? Normally they'd finish end of November, right?
Yeah.
And then to be end of November, to be starting at the end of January, then look, they should have that 2 month break.
Bit of stand down.
Yeah, bit of stand down. So I agree with the stand down because they have been training solidly and they do need some stand down. But the players who haven't had much game time don't need the rest time, as you say, coming back in at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. But again, I come back to the fact is that when obviously, I think the biggest factor is the media negativity around the game and what that's done to the game. But in saying that, in terms of marketing, if you want to sell a game, you got to have your biggest names on the field. And where possible, you should be doing that. As you just said, you've got certain players, the match day 23 that are being selected consistently. You can put some minutes around them. The guys that are the sort of the dirties, let them go.
Yeah, the fringe players.
Spread their wings.
The fringe players have definitely got to. They don't need it. I mean, Tony Brown was suggesting that players like Naholo basically missed out, didn't get enough rugby to be in form last year.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Rico. Tell you the truth, there was. I don't think he ever got back. He never got back the sparkle to displace George Bridge or Sevu Reece, but he never got the opportunity to either.
Now, something that he didn't do last year that he had done previously was play sevens.
Yeah.
This year, there's been lots of talk about him coming into this season, a couple of kg down on last year.
Yep.
Now, maybe, I don't know, but maybe playing sevens is something that he actually needs or helps him with his form. So maybe
absolutely. I think with outside backs in particular, playing sevens does not hurt. It's if you look at I'll use the women's game just for a bit of example. You've got a couple of players in the women's sevens team that have never really played 15s. Now, for them to come back and play 15s is actually quite different because they're not. Sevens is really quite a different game to 15s, and they've only ever played sevens. They're not really. Yeah, they're just not up for the physicality of 15s, to put it bluntly. Sorry, but you look like at a Rico. Rico's grown up playing 15s. He's made his name in 15s. So when he goes and plays sevens, it only improves his 15s game.
Yeah, I agree. There's. I think that might have been one of his issues last year. Is he just wasn't playing sevens, and actually a bit more sevens for him. You see the cycling analogy. Mark Cavendish, when he wasn't doing track cycling, he wasn't as quick in sprints. But by getting on the track during the winter, he got his leg speed up on the track, and that helped him with his road racing the following season. So yeah, I think there's something to be said there.
Some of those boys need to go to road cycling or to go to the velodrome.
Get to the velodrome. So God Goku's got a question for us. He's called you Scott, but I don't know why. But his name's Arshwin, by the way. What's your top 3 managers in rugby at the moment?
Honestly, the door's open. You'd have to say, we've had a big turnover in rugby because of the World Cup. That's what happens after the World Cup. So I think it's give it a few more weeks, and I think they'll start to show. One name, obviously, that's put a hand up already is Warren Gatland. He's gone from Wales, he's come into the Chiefs, and basically, bang, the Chiefs are on. And he's come in there, and he's the difference. Because if you look at the squad, particularly the tight five, they struggle, right? But he's making that team hum. They beat the Crusaders, the champions from last year. Now, they even managed to beat the Blues somehow. No, look, I mean, he's got the cattle in the back line, but his forward pack's basically a bunch of guys that he's getting motivated to work hard.
Yep. So Warren Gatland has got to be up there. We're looking at what he's done with Wales, what he's done with British and Irish Lions as well. He's come now. He's shown that he can do it at club level as well. So yeah, Warren Gatland's definitely got to be in that conversation. It's very difficult not to include Scott Robinson at the moment because of his three Super Rugby victories over the last 3 years, but he's yet to prove it anywhere else than the Canterbury setup.
To be fair, no, he's actually done it. He's done it at a few levels. That's why when Steve Hansen stepped down, the drums were beating for Scott Robinson. He's done it. He took it under 20s when they hadn't won for a couple of years and they won.
And then he left the under 20s with their worst ever record. Worst ever competition. So he's a bit up and down in the under 20.
And then he went to Canterbury and then the Crusaders. Had success with Canterbury as well as the Crusaders.
Yeah, that's what the Canterbury whole setup. It's not just.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I'm just sort of thinking. I took the thing as what God Goku was saying as the right now. And if it was right now, obviously they've got a 50% record. They lost to the Chiefs when that's the game they have to get up for. So. That's why I sort of wouldn't include him in my top 3 at the moment. But I said a couple of more weeks and things will.
I think he's in the conversation. Other people, Rob Baxter has got to be in the conversation. But again, he's only coached Exeter Chiefs, but he's done amazing jobs getting them promoted and then building a team in there. You've got to say Razzie, even though he's not a head coach anymore, did great things with South Africa. Eddie Jones, okay, he's a Marmite coach. People don't like him, but look, he got England to the Rugby World Cup final. That's even if you don't like him, you've got to respect the results he actually has got. Sure, he's lost a game, won a game in the Six Nations this time round. You do lose games. Losing one game does not make you a bad coach.
Yeah. As you know, I watched so much rugby this weekend.
Yep.
So Sunwolves, did they play a game, or did they have to buy?
They had to buy.
Right. Okay. So because I mean, like after beating the Rebels, and you got to remember that team's come together where some of the last players in the squad were assembled the day before competition started, sort of thing. So you pretty good coaching going on there, possibly.
Yeah. And their schedule is just a nightmare. So they get a game, they play really well. They don't have a bye, so they don't get to carry that momentum into the second game, which would have been good. And then they get the Chiefs, who are one of the 4, maybe 5 contenders to win the competition. It's how to take the wind out of someone's sails.
So hang on, when they don't play the Chiefs this weekend, right? They play them because Brumbies play Chiefs this weekend.
No, Brumbies play the Highlanders this weekend.
Oh, did they? Sorry, my bad. I thought it was okay.
Other people that are in this conversation, Simon Hughes makes a good comment about Leo Cullen. Young coach, done a lot with Leinster, obviously. But what we're also seeing there is that he's done very well again. His showing his humility to get the right people into place to help him as a young coach. So saying, I'm struggling. Please can you get me Stuart Lancaster? Bringing Stuart Lancaster in as a senior assistant or whatever, basically number 2, but to go out to realise he needs an experienced guy to help him out. And again, Stuart Lancaster for 4 years, England came second in the Six Nations. He wasn't a bad coach. So Leo Cullen's an interesting one. But yeah, and part of being a good coach is getting the right people around you.
Like Batman's comment.
What?
No, it's Scott Robertson to be Wales coach if Pivac fails.
Well, we'll see. No,
Pivac's a good coach. I mean, he's done some good things with some pretty, or he's built sides. They've never been limited, but he's built sides. So he did it with Auckland. He did it with Fiji. until Fiji got the Spanish archers out.
And he also did it with Scarlets as well.
Yeah.
In Wales. So yeah. Now there's another. So we've just talked about head coaches so far on the whole. Then there are other guys who don't make good head coaches, but make really good assistant coaches. Some of those that spring to mind are, Wayne Smith is the classic example. But at the moment, Tony Brown is in that category of somebody that I would say is one of the best. Actually, sorry, two head coaches we've not mentioned that we should have done. Jamie Joseph and who's at Bristol? Pat Lamb. Two guys are doing good things as well. Sorry to forget those two. So Tony Brown for me is one of the top coaches in the world, but not a head coach yet. He hasn't proved that to me. He's one of the guys I'd want in there.
Everybody wants him though, eh? It's interesting. Yeah. So many people want Tony Brown.
Sean Edwards, another guy who, look at that French defence now, and he's only had them for a couple of weeks. So again, Sean Edwards, another one of the top coaches around. Farrell did a great job in defence with the British and Irish Lions. It's going to be interesting to see how he is as a head coach now. When he kind of went off the rails with England was when he was when he didn't have a strong head coach, and he got too much of his own freedom. Whereas under Schmidt, I think he was well controlled. So it's interesting to see how he goes. But yeah, there's definitely that crowd that we don't know as well, but I think are really important. Any that springs to your mind?
No. Look, I think that's the thing. Is just like, as I say, I think with the Six Nations kicking off, or getting started, Super Rugby getting started, there'll be some. There's been movement, and there'll be some coaches that'll now start to sort of like show whether they've got the goods or not. And I think one of the things that you're noticing, like, coaches make a big difference.
Oh yes.
Well, you take Warren Gatlin out of that Chiefs, and I reckon they'll be quite a different side.
But I think he was obviously busy with Wales, and he also Stuart Lancaster again, another one of those really good assistant coaches. Coaching,
not a head coach,
not necessarily at the admin side of things. I'm trying to think who's gone over to. There's someone at Leinster. Someone at Munster who's just gone over there. I think is really good as well. I've gone blank. Anyway, but someone from the Southern Hemisphere has gone over there. That's kind of interesting. Where was I going? I've gone blank.
I don't know. I've gone blank. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, folks. I lost my train of thought. Those are my thoughts around. Warren Gatland was really busy with Wales. He even stayed around and did a Barbarians game, post-Rugby World Cup. So I'm not sure how long he's been in, or how much opportunity he's had to be with the Chiefs. Now, a couple of things there. One, he's changed the training schedule and structure, so it's much shorter training sessions, but much more intense training sessions. And some of the stuff that he's talked about during you can see him talking and everyone listening during when they put the camera in there at half time. But Tobias Matson, I think that's more Tobias Matson's team that Gatland's come along and add the polish to, rather than necessarily being a Gatland team per se.
Yeah. The name you might have been thinking of for Munster was Stephen Larkham.
Oh yeah, no, he's not a very good coach. Sorry.
I'm just saying the name you're thinking of.
But you're right. Yes, he's the guy that went there. Yeah, I knew there was a name that had gone there, and I thought, sorry, no. Yeah, my mistake. My bad.
No.
Oh dear. Cool. The one thing we haven't talked about is Major League Rugby. Just very briefly, it kicked off last weekend. Now, if you're not in the USA or Canada, then you can watch these games free of charge on Facebook Live. So go over to the Major League Rugby Facebook page, like it, and set up notifications, and you'll get notified when they go live with their games. They're on a decent time, so they're like 10 a.m. in the morning, midday kind of stuff here for New Zealand. It's great. The opening round really, really shook things up, and there were some real surprises. So Rugby ATL and New England Free Jacks both won their first ever games in Major League Rugby. It's unusual for expansion teams to go well so quickly, so that was really impressive, especially as New England Free Jacks played the Rugby United New York, who made the playoffs last year. And San Diego beat Seattle Seawolves in a replay of the final. But Seattle knows that winning now is not the important thing. Winning that last game of the season is. You have to get there, obviously, but they haven't finished top of the ladder for either of the first two seasons, but they've gone on to win the final.
And a little bit of the rugby that I did see this week, I saw some highlights of the Major League Rugby, and it's interesting. Some of the imports, like big name imports, adding quality and making a difference.
Okay, because I've heard that some also turned up so overweight, Bastero, that
surprised.
Surprised, yes, exactly. But look, it's about having that mix, isn't it? You want to grow your own squads, but having a number of guys who can bring a bit of calm and quality on the pitch, but also are good mentors off the pitch to teach what being a professional rugby player really means. We've seen players who are really good who don't get it. A prime example is Amua down in the Hurricanes. First year goes straight into the All Black setup, comes back overweight in the off season. It's taken 2 years to get back up to that sort of standard, and he's starting to look good again. But it's taken him 2 years to mature and understand what being a full-time player really means. So interesting there. Cool. Thank you everybody for joining us in the live chat. It's been an absolute blast. Yet again, if you haven't noticed, the Hash Rugby Chat show is going to be about the stuff around rugby. The games we'll talk about in post-match reactions and in the Super Rugby Roundup that I do with Stephen Harris on a Monday night at 8 p.m. But this is about sort of just talking about the stuff around rugby. And let's be honest, there's plenty of news going on for us to talk about. It's well, Archie and I, well, actually I don't know if Archie will be, but I'll be back next week at 8 p.m. And I'll be also back on Thursday evening at 8 p.m. with Shane when we preview the Super Rugby round 3. So join us for that. Don't forget, DrivingMaul.com. A couple of really cool interviews. I had one with Adrian Skeggs as well, the ex-Wallaby. That's available there. That came out at the weekend, talking about sort of growing rugby in Australia. I've got that one with Mike Rogers coming up tomorrow. They're Plenty CEO. So there's some really cool stuff on there at the moment. So please go over there and support the channel. Thank you, Ashwin.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Missing you.